I get to teach religion, music, and phonics. So it keeps my week busy. It keeps me studying and whatnot. And we're doing Solomon this week. And I thought, well, we'll just do Solomon on Sunday too. We'll see who shows up and how this is. Right in the middle of the Solomon section, in 1 Kings chapter 10, we read about how rich King Solomon is. And I always thought that was kind of interesting to find out how rich he is. And then chapter 11 is the downfall. Okay? That's where he gets himself in all sorts of trouble, and good King Solomon falls out of grace. And you probably know the story, but it's still fun to go over once again. So I'm in 1 Kings chapter 10. 1 Kings 10. Didn't look, there it is. And remember the Queen of Sheba? Supposedly a beautiful woman. There's a rumor about her, and when I was studying this, it is a rumor. It's never been proven that she was so impressed with Solomon's wisdom that she came to see him with a ton of questions to see is he as smart as I hear he is, and that then she went home with his child. That's never been proven. I guess when we read chapter 11, we shouldn't be surprised because he was not too careful about who he had babies with. And if she got pregnant while she was visiting there, they shouldn't be surprised. But there's no historical fact that shows that. So just get that one out of the way. But we'll talk about how impressed she was. Looking at the word here, I started out with something on top that you have to think. Beyond the big words, you don't have to think today. You can just listen. All right. You recognize the words? Shalom, Salem, Jerusalem, Solomon. When we say shalom to all of our Jewish friends, and I'm sure you've got a lot of them around here, right? When you say shalom to your friends, what is shalom?
Hello, goodbye.
Hello, goodbye? Good guess. Not right. Good guess. Shalom. Skip over to the next one. Salem. You've heard of Salem. I was trying to figure where did I hear of Salem? It was a city. And in the Bible, man, I don't remember why or when we learned about Melchizedek, the king of righteousness. Melchizedek, this priest, shows up in the scriptures. He came from Salem. I found that out studying for this week. And, okay, so Salem is connected to Shalom. Do you see the same letters in there? Shalom, S-L-M, Salem. Jerusalem is connected. Again, Salem is in there. And it's connected to Solomon's name, S-L-M. If you talk to your Jewish friends, we already covered that. Talk to your Jewish friends and they'll teach you. Well, in Hebrew, every word has 3 basic letters in it. So all of these top words have got S-L-M. Shalom. Shalom, Salem, Jerusalem, and Solomon. They all mean peace. Peace. So shalom is a good way to say hello and goodbye. Shalom. Peace. Good to see you. Peace be with you as you leave. End of the worship service. Be good to go shalom. It would fit. Salem means peace. Salem is the original name for Jerusalem. Way back, before David established it as a city. Way back in the book of Genesis, Melchizedek came from the city of Salem, city of peace. Jerusalem, still got your shalom in there, salam, and that's founded on peace. So when Jerusalem took on that name, it's a city founded on peace. Okay. And Solomon is a king of peace. Okay. So Solomon's name, peaceful name, got a nice name. Trying to think, I guess I don't want to get too far off subject. Names that had meaning. I'm trying to remember Irene. My aunt's name was Irene, and I can't remember exactly if it was Beauty. But some names have got specific meanings like this. Solomon's wealth was greatly increased, and I wanted to share with you. You'll find selected verses from chapter 10 as I read through here. Just listen how rich this guy was. When the Queen of Sheba heard about the fame of Solomon and his relation to the name of the Lord, she came to test him with hard questions. Arriving at Jerusalem with a very great caravan, with camels carrying spices, large quantities of gold and precious stones, she came to Solomon and talked with him about all that she had on her mind. Solomon answered all her questions. Nothing was too hard for the king to explain to her. When the Queen of Sheba saw all the wisdom of Solomon and the palace he had built, the food on his table, the seating of his officials, the attending servants in their robes, his cupbearers, the burnt offerings he made at the temple of the Lord, she was overwhelmed. Okay, one paragraph. Did you pick up? We're not a rich family. We only have 5 servants at our house, right? That kind of impresses people. I'm making it up. He's looking at me like, really? We're not really rich. We just have a couple dozen horses. I don't know how many acres we own. And you hear people say things like that, and you go, wow. Well, this is what it was like meeting Solomon. He's just over the top. And this is just looking at, we sat down for dinner, and there were all these servants. There was somebody who brought cups, with wine in them. There was somebody who was dressed just to the tens, and it just goes on. So she said to the king, verse 6, "The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true, but I did not believe these things until I came and saw with my own eyes. Indeed, not even half was told to me. In wisdom and in wealth you have far exceeded the report I heard. How happy your men must be, how happy your officials, who continually stand before you and hear your wisdom. Praise be to the Lord your God, who was delighted in you and placed you on the throne of Israel because of the Lord's eternal love for Israel. He has made you king to maintain justice and righteousness." Okay, so here we are looking at this rich king, and you have to be impressed when you read about what was all going on. And you think, everybody who works here has to be happy. Look at this lavish place. It's a beautiful palace. Everybody is dressed so well. Look how they eat. Look out the windows and see what's all out there. Look at everybody who's here must be happy. You think that's true? We get this impression of wealth, and Solomon was truly blessed. Now I think this is where I put them on your, still not right, 10:14. I'm getting close to that. She gave the king 120 talents of gold, large quantities of spices and precious stones. Never again were so many spices brought in as those the Queen of Sheba gave to Solomon. Hiram is somebody that he hired from nearby country to build. He was a king, but Solomon was so rich he hired the king to oversee the building of the temple and the palace, and his palace. So Hiram brought his ships from Ophir. There they brought precious cargoes of wood, precious stones. The king used the wood to make supports for the temple of the Lord and for the royal palace, to make harps and lyres for his musicians. I've got so much money I hire my own musicians. I get my own band. I don't have to listen to a radio. I don't need CDs and an MP3 player and whatever else. I just hire musicians, and I make their instruments for them. You need a new harp, I'll get you a new harp. King Solomon gave the Queen of Sheba everything she desired and asked for, besides what he had given her out of his royal bounty. Then she left and returned with her crew to her country. Now, here's where we start. The weight of the gold that Solomon received was nearly 600 talents, not including the income from merchants and traders from the Arabian kings and the governors of the land. King Solomon had 200 gold shields, large ones, hammered, made out of 600 weights of gold in each shield. He also made 300 small shields of hammered gold, with 3 weights of gold in each. The king put them in the palace of the forest of Lebanon. He didn't even use them. He made these great big shields. That weighed, if you have your Bible open, it'll tell you about 7.5 pounds were the large ones, 3.5 pounds were the small ones. Solid gold. Did he use them for battle or protection? No, he sent them out to another place where he had a summer palace, and he had them set up for display. Decorations. What do you do with all the gold you have? Yeah, I made shields out of them, hung them on the wall. Looks nice. Then the king made a great throne. I love this one. Made with ivory, overlaid with fine gold. The throne had 6 steps on its back and a rounded top. On both sides of the seats were armrests, with a lion standing on each side. 12 other lions stood on 6 steps at either end of each step. Nothing like it had ever been made for any other kingdom. All King Solomon's other goblets were of gold, and all the household articles in the palace of Lebanon were pure gold. Nothing was made of silver, because silver was considered of little value in Solomon's days. The king had a fleet of trading ships, along with the ones that he gave to Hiram to work on building that. For 3 years, every 3 years, they returned carrying gold, silver, ivory. Bet you won't expect this one. Apes and baboons. You know, it's kind of boring around the palace. All I do is sit here, look at the gold, drink my wine, ride my horses. You know what'd be fun? I want a monkey. So he had to bring monkeys in, just for entertainment. Solomon was greater in riches and wisdom than all the other kings of the earth, and the whole world sought audience with Solomon to hear his wisdom. God put much wisdom in his heart, and year after year, everyone who came brought a gift: articles of silver and gold, robes and weapons and spices, horses and mules. Remember horses. Remember horses. Solomon accumulated chariots and horses. He had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horses, which he kept in the chariot cities, and he also kept with him in Jerusalem. The king made silver as common in Jerusalem as stones, and cedar was as plentiful as sycamore figs, the scrub things in the foothills. Solomon's horses were imported from Egypt. The royal merchants purchased them from up north. They imported a chariot from Egypt for 600 shekels. And I wonder if I've got that price down here. 600 shekels. Maybe it's in your notes. I don't remember. Verse 29. Did I have a note on how many shekels, what 600 shekels was? In verse 29.
Yeah, 15 pounds.
15 pounds. 15 pounds of silver he spent. Thank you. He also had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray as Solomon grew older. Now it seems that I went beyond chapter 10. But anyhow, we read horses. I want to go back with the horses because I never thought of it until I was preparing this, and not for this week, but I had taught this class before too. Back in, and I know there's a note in Genesis chapter, I put a marker in it today, Deuteronomy 17, the king. Okay, so back in the book of Deuteronomy, God told Moses, when the people enter the land the Lord is giving to you and they've taken possession and settled it, and they say, let a king rule over us like the nations around us, be sure to appoint a king the God, your Lord the God chooses. The Lord your God chooses. The king must not acquire great numbers of horses for himself. He must not make the people return to Egypt to get other people for the Lord. You are not to go back that way again. He must not take many wives, or his heart will be led astray. He must not accumulate large amounts of silver and gold. So there is the first testimony that things are going to go bad for King Solomon. He's starting now to, he's getting wealthy, he's been blessed, which is a great thing when God blesses us. But the thing is, take care. When God blesses you, be careful how you use his blessings. So now I'm on your pages here. And there's a picture of Solomon up there. He had all those chariots and all those horses. He made silver everybody had silver, you know. He gave silver away. It just didn't matter to him. True to his word, God had blessed Solomon with a great abundance because at the time Solomon honored his Lord. Going back to 1 Kings 3, moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for. Remember, when he made Solomon king, the Lord said to him, this is David's son, he said, ask for anything that you want. And he said, I'm just a young man. I'm a child, he says. I don't know how to rule this great people that you have. I don't want money. All I want is wisdom to lead these people, that please God. And he said, because you have not asked for money, you have not asked for the defeat of your enemies, I am going to give you the wisdom that you need, but I'm also going to give you great wealth. Wealth like the world has never seen. So in your lifetime, you will have no equal among your kings. If you walk in obedience to me and keep my decrees and commands, as David your father did, I will give you a long life. Okay, this was fun. That was a fun chapter. Reading about all that one person can have and just trying to fathom what that all amounts to. But eventually, the king showed a weakness that caused him to turn from the great God who blessed him. His wealth became so great, his fame so widespread, that he lost his focus. Do you think that can happen? You think that can happen? I wish I could remember her name. Baseball player, Tomey, played for the Chicago White Sox. And I just saw a picture yesterday of Jim Tomey. And he always autographs things for kids who come up to him because kids look up to me. It's something I asked for. Kids have heroes. Why can't you take a moment to sign an autograph? Wow, he's got his head together. You listen to some of the other, I was talking to you about the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback. Anybody help me with the name? Mahomes. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes. Facebook. Yeah, I get great information off Facebook. You know it's true. Right? They were showing the automobiles and the homes that these rich and famous people have. Mansions and whatnot. And cars. The Kansas City Chiefs are ashamed of Patrick Mahomes when he drives his Ford truck to work. When he comes to practice in a Ford truck. Because they were showing Tom Brady and Bugatti. Is that a car? Well, it's some really fancy little car. So he's got a Bugatti, and the guy from down in one of the Florida teams, he's got a Bugatti, and the others have these Lamborghinis, and all this, and Mahomes drives a Ford truck. Okay? My wife was reading about presidents and presidents' homes. Same deal, one of those Facebook deals or whatever, and gets down to, you got all these $1 million homes that all these politicians live in, and then you get to Jimmy Carter, and Jimmy Carter's home is valued at something just under $200,000. He lives in a neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia, or Plains, Georgia. He lives there in a neighborhood with his neighbors, common house. And you like to read about that. You like to read that, people who have great fame, power and authority, respect and honor, skill, money, but it doesn't go to their head. They still love to read, that somebody still has some common sense. We were talking about basketball. Antetokounmpo, the Bucks' big player. What did he do after they won the national championship, or the championship last year? Do you remember? You remember what he did with his trophy? He put it in his car, and then he put on Facebook, I'm going to be at the McDonald's on Silver Spring Drive or whatever. At this time, I'm going to come to McDonald's. And he's driving through McDonald's to get his hamburgers for him and his wife or girlfriend at that time. And he brought his MVP trophy, and he had another trophy along with him for winning the championship. And he let people, reach in the car and touch the trophy, and he signed autographs. And I know he's got an ego. He's got reason to have an ego, but you like to hear when they do something normal. I'm going to go to McDonald's. You want to meet me? I'm going to be there. And Solomon, at one point was like that. He was richly blessed in God, and he kept it to himself. Now, bottom of first page. I said to myself, come now, Solomon, I will test you with pleasure to find out what is good. But the pleasure I tried out proved to be meaningless. I built houses for myself. I planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs to water groves of flourishing trees. I amassed gold and silver for myself. And vanity is the way the NIV puts it. Worthless. All these things were worthless to me. I could build anything I wanted. That's not what brought me happiness. Okay? His wealth, his ability to build and do all those things, did not bring him any happiness. Chapter 11, what happened is what God said would happen, way back in Deuteronomy. All right? And King Solomon loved many foreign women, taking them as his wives. Growing up, I never understood this. I always thought, God said, let there be one man and one woman. That's what a marriage is. One man and one woman. How come David had more than one wife? How come Solomon had, are you kidding me, 300? Those weren't wives, right? 700 wives and 300 extra women. It wasn't just ego. A lot of it was making peace. And we don't understand this. I've got to say, I don't understand it. If you and I were kings, and we wanted to make a peace treaty, you're the most powerful king of the two of us. In order to secure that peace treaty, I would offer to you, if she's still available, my oldest daughter. She can be your wife. You can have my daughter as your wife. Then the next country, he needs something from the king. And the king says, well, sure, I can give you what you need. I can give you protection. I can give you food. I can give you money. What do you need? And how are you going to pay me? With my oldest daughter. And slowly, as he becomes more and more powerful, and his country of Israel grows and grows, and they take over. Kings didn't roll over whole countries all the time. Sometimes kings ruled cities, like Hiram. Remember I told you he hired the king to build his palace? He was king of a city. So he would make peace treaties with cities, and he'd get a wife, he'd get a wife, he'd get a wife. Well, you remember when Moses was going to cross the river and go into the promised land of Israel, and God said, destroy everyone. Moses didn't make it, right? Joshua took them all across the river, and he defeated all those nations. Except he didn't defeat all of them. That's what God said. Wipe them all out. They're all heathen. I don't want them around. I don't want them influencing you. Well, they killed most of the enemies like God told Joshua to do, but some they let live. So here, just outside of Israel, are all these people over by the Mediterranean Sea. Foreign kings, foreign wives, foreign daughters. He makes treaties with them, marries their daughters, so he gets a bunch of wives. It's not like we do. Like we fall in love with someone and get down on one knee and say, would you be my wife? I will be faithful to you for the rest of my life. I promise you this. And it's because we love somebody. Sometimes it was an agreement. It was payment. Do we understand that? No. I'm looking at you wondering, can you imagine if your dad gave you away? And said, hey, I made a peace treaty with, the mayor of Philadelphia. Now you're his wife. It doesn't, we don't get it. But that's how he got so many wives. Problem was, God said way back in the time of Moses, don't get involved with foreign countries. Don't get involved with should have wiped out all those people on the west side of the Jordan River. That was Joshua's fault. That goes way back a long time. Now you're up at Solomon's time. Now he's marrying them. And he's having children with them. And the nation of Israel is becoming what? It's not pure. It's no longer a pure nation of people whom God had selected. His wives turned away his heart. Sadly, Solomon knew better. God had warned Israel not to intermarry with foreigners. For, he said, surely they will turn your hearts after their gods. You ever been in a situation, you don't have to raise your hand, you ever been in a situation where you have an opportunity to do something you shouldn't do, and you know you shouldn't do that, and God very clearly says, thou shalt not steal. Okay, we'll pick that. God very clearly says, you shall not steal. But mom left $20 right there on the dresser, right there on the kitchen counter. I know I shouldn't take it. There's 40. She's not going to notice if one's gone. And this will destroy your relationship with your mother. This will destroy your relationship with your God. That's what he's telling Solomon. Solomon knew what God had said, but he chose, to He could have said, I suppose, he could have said to the foreign kings, I don't want your daughters. You know, but that's the way business was done, so he ended up with 700 wives. Still can't fathom that. You know, but in addition to that, there's some good-looking women out of home. Remember what his father did? He saw that beautiful woman on the roof next door, and he sent one of his servants to go get her. Well, Solomon apparently did the same thing. In addition to his wives, he saw some good-looking women walking down the street and sends his servants, go get them. So he ends up with 700 wives and 300 more women. When I was in college and seminary, we used to think about wouldn't it be great, because you're 20 years old, wouldn't it be great to be in a room full of beautiful women? Yeah. And when I was 26, I was a vicar, and I was sitting in a ladies' aid meeting in Wisconsin Rapids, and there were like 80 women in the room, and me. But, yeah, this isn't what I had in mind, 80 ladies guild women. Can you fathom 700 and 300? The numbers just baffle me.
And I'm sure they all got along.
And oh yes, it was yeah. How do you not do wife number one, number two? Bring me my favorite one. Yeah. And who did we see that with? I mean, that was biblical. Where the second wife became very jealous of the first. Abraham had 2 wives, and I know there's another one.
So Rachel and Leah, the sisters?
Rachel and Leah were 2 sisters that went to. Who married Rachel and Leah? Yeah.
David, I mean,
Yeah.
that was
The same thing,
Yeah.
but there's this jealousy thing. But imagine, or I'm just, I'm married to the king, so you're one of 700, so you're married to the king. My daughter's married to King Solomon. That wise rich guy. You know where she lives? She lives in one of those palaces. Where the walls are decorated in gold. Love to go see her. So is my daughter. So is my niece. So is Nothing special. When Solomon was old, his wives turned his heart after their gods. His heart was no longer loyal to the Lord his God, as was his father David. Now remember, David wasn't a great guy. Yes, he was. David was a great guy. David was a sinner. Okay? David repented of his sin, and he served God with his whole heart. He loved God with his heart. He sinned like you and I sinned. David sinned too. Like some people get caught, David got caught. Some sins multiply, David's sins multiplied, but it stopped. And he was faithful, his heart was faithful to the Lord. It says here Solomon wasn't quite the same. Solomon fell into the belief of these of his wives. Then Solomon built a high palace for Chemosh, the abomination of the country of Moab, on the hill that is east of Jerusalem. For Moloch, the abomination of the people of Ammon, he did likewise for all of his foreign wives who burned incense and sacrificed to their gods. The one that I remember, and it was because I was doing a study of Jerusalem, the god Moloch, and out in the valley of Gehenna, okay, on the southwest side of Jerusalem, out in the valley of Gehenna, where everybody dumped their trash. Okay, that's where the fires of Gehenna, another word for hell. You want to know what hell's like? You go smell that trash burning out in Gehenna. That's what hell's going to smell like and be like. Down there was a temple to the god Moloch, and he was this stone god, big stone god. They've got archaeologists have found a number of them. And Moloch has got his arms folded like this, and women would bring their children and put them in the arms of Moloch, with the fires burning in the stones beneath him, and burn up the children. That was how you worshiped Moloch. Solomon built a temple to Moloch. Chemosh, I think Chemosh is Ashtaroth, and god of astrology and all the things like worshiping the stars and the sunset and sun and moon. So Solomon's sins would lead to his kingdom being divided into the 2 separate states of Israel and Judah. Now, remember that Solomon was the king of peace. 1 Kings 11, here's a list of his enemies. He's the king of peace. He made peace treaties with 700 kings, right? He had 700 wives. The people, when Sheba came and she said, when Sheba visited him, this is so great. Everybody here must be happy. Everything is lavish. And she was so impressed. It wasn't like that. We're only a chapter away from when she was there. The Lord raised up against Solomon an adversary named Hadad from the country of Edom. He also raised up against Solomon another adversary, Rezin of Zobah. And Jeroboam rebelled against the king. He was one of Solomon's officials, an Ephraimite. Ahijah took hold of the new cloak that he was wearing and tore it into 12 pieces and said, I'm going to tear up Solomon's kingdom, just like this. Then he said to Jeroboam, take 10 pieces for yourself, and this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. See, I'm going to tear the kingdom out of Solomon's hand. I'm going to give you 10 tribes. Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam, but Jeroboam fled. God is no respecter of persons. Even though he had chosen Solomon to be the king, even though he said, ask for what you want and I'll give it to you, even though he blessed him richly, he fell into sin. He was tempted, and this is a Bible passage about Jesus, he was tempted like we are, except Jesus did no sin. Solomon was tempted like we are. Why would he sin? He could have anything he wanted. Why would he? Don't you think that? You and I, if we could have anything we wanted, we wouldn't be tempted. Okay? I wouldn't be tempted to overeat. No, I shouldn't. Never mind. That's not a bad example. Skip that one. A ruler's downfall. Next page. God's word is honest with its heroes. Could have lied. Could have just told us the first part of Solomon's life. Solomon left a legacy for a man who in his old age departed from God. But God did not blot out his writings or example, both good and bad. We have the whole book of Ecclesiastes and Proverbs written by Solomon. Lots of wise things in there. Okay? Lots of, God says this was a man who I blessed richly. Listen to him. He was one of the inspired authors of the scripture. The man had so much, but he lacked one crucial ingredient. The will and the character to do what he knew was right. Leave the $20 there. It's a temptation. I don't need it. I don't need to take that $20. But as Jesus said, the spirit is willing. Why did you take the $20? The answer, why did you take $20 from off the kitchen counter? I don't know. Did you really need $20? You could have asked me, I would have given it to you. I was afraid to ask you. Are you going to do it again? No, I'll never do it again. The heart is willing, the flesh is weak. Put another $20 bill up there next week. Got away with it once. Might try it again. God warned that when human beings are blessed, they should not forget who provides those blessings. Patrick Mahomes, Antetokounmpo, Jim Thome, pick a lot of other Jimmy Carter, all those examples. I gave you a few simple examples. Pick a lot of examples of people who use their God-given talents in so many ways to bless and help people. Good guy from Pewaukee, football player. There's three brothers at Watts, J.J. Watts. Do you remember what he did when the floods hit Houston? And the day after the floods hit Houston, J.J. Watts said, I want to help. I'm going to put down $15,000. I hope you can match it. Boom, they had $30,000. Boom, they had $100,000. Boom, they had $200,000. Look what he all did. And if you follow up on J.J. Watts, he still does those kind of things. He seems to come from, we all want to like him because he's from Pewaukee, right? But he seems to come from a family that raised him in a way that says, when God blesses you, share it. Share your blessings. He seems to be one like that. We'd love to hear about this. But the temptation is not to do it. Here's the warning for all of us. Be careful that you do not forget the Lord your God, failing to observe his commands and his laws, his decrees that I am giving you this day. Otherwise, when you are eat and you are satisfied, I am. When you build fine houses and you settle down, none of us are living in cardboard boxes. When your herds and flocks grow large and your silver and gold increase and all you have is multiplied, then your heart will become proud and you'll forget the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt. That was still their big thing. Remember what I've done for you. You may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth and so confirms his covenant which he swore to your ancestors as it is today. If you ever forget the Lord your God and you follow other gods and worship and bow down to them, I testify against you today, you will surely be destroyed. You will be destroyed for not obeying the Lord your God. This is Moses talking way back before Solomon was even thought of. But look at the truth of that. Solomon forgot God's laws. Both Solomon and his nation eventually suffered because of his backsliding attitude. Is it easy for us to fall into temptation? To think I won't sin? What would you do if you won $1 million? It's a great question. I love that question. What would you do if you had $1 million? And I want to say, I'm going to give a lot of it to help people who I know need it, or maybe people I don't even. I want to say that. But when I have $1 million, I guess I'm saying this, a lot of this because the kids are here. And I'm not looking down on you. I mean, I just hope it applies to you. There is a game. If it's not Bill Gates, you got to give me another name of some rich guy. It's on the internet. My grandson found it last week. Spend Bill Gates' money, and you get $1 billion. And now you have $1 billion. What are you going to do with it? And you have these choices that are on this list, and it's hard. The point was, it's hard to spend $1 billion. We just don't fathom what $1 billion is. But you start out with a Burger King with a Whopper for $2.50, and then there's a baseball bat, and then you buy airplanes, and you buy resorts, and you buy islands, and you buy all this stuff. And it was awesome to watch. My grandson, this one is 6 years old, 7, and he's going through, and it was kind of a boring game until he got to buying airplanes and helicopters. That was pretty cool. I still got, look at all the money, I can buy 4 of them, you know. So he bought 4 airplanes, and I can buy an island, you know, buys an island. I still have all this money. I can buy 10 islands, put down 10 islands, Grandpa. Here, wrote down 10 islands, you know. And it's amazing what it takes to spend $1 billion. But it was amazing to see his attitude, you know, when it went from, I don't want Burger King, I don't need a baseball bat, you know, and it is small $10, $20 things, and then it got to $100 things, and that would be cool. But by the time he was spending $20,000 or $1 million at a time on a helicopter or a tank, I think was on there too, buy a tank, you know, he's spending $1 million at a time, and he's getting more and more excited, and it's all about him. There was nothing on that website about, do you share and give to help others? It's all about, do you want islands? Do you want airplanes? Do you want this and that? And it was fun. It's a fun game if you find it. Spend Bill Gates $1 billion or something like that. And it just, the awesome thing for me was watching his attitude change. You know, I'm not carried. All of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. I want to spend. I want. And I'm down to $900 million. Can you imagine? I'm way down already. You know? I only have that much left. Interesting. Greed. And he told me that. He says, boy, that was a lesson in greed, wasn't it? I bought a lot of stuff. Easy to do when the opportunity is there. Solomon said, what did he say when he came to his senses? For the wise, like the fool, will not be long remembered. The days have already come when both have been forgotten. Solomon knew he was wise. He knew he was blessed. Let's talk about athletes. They know they're blessed. They have gifts that others wish they had. But what happens to athletes? What happens to powerful people? They die. Just like everybody. The end is the same, Solomon says. Whether they're fool or wise. Like the fool, the wise too must die. So I hated life because the work that is done under the sun was grievous to me. I could do anything. I did it. It was all meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I hated all the things I worked for under the sun because even though they were mine, I'm going to die and they're going to go to somebody else who didn't work for them. And this is all this planning, all this thinking is foolishness. What does he really need? What does he really want? Salome. He really wants peace. And money didn't give it to him. And 1,000 women didn't give it to him. And anything you want didn't give him that joy. What effect did the Lord's sentence have upon him? When I surveyed everything my hands had done and what I toiled to achieve, for me, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I gained nothing under the sun. I saw that wisdom was better than folly, like light is better than darkness, but in the end, it's all going to be the same. Everything I bought, everything I owned, everything I built is going to go to somebody else, be destroyed, be gone. It was, by the way. In later writings, against what danger did Solomon greatly warn people, especially the youth? I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for my toil. Then I turned my thoughts to consider wisdom, and also madness and folly. What more can the king's successor do than what that king had already done? The wise have eyes in their heads, the fool walks in darkness. I came to realize no matter which you are, the same fate overtakes you. Appreciate what God gives you. Use what God gives you. Your talents are here. As for other events in Solomon's reign, all he did and the wisdom he displayed, are they not written in the book of the annals of Solomon? Solomon reigned in Jerusalem for 40 years. Then he rested with his ancestors, and he was buried just like his father David. And Rehoboam, his son, succeeded him and messed up everything. He messed up the entire kingdom of Israel, and Israel and Judah were completely divided, and it was all downhill from there. Boy, from glory to nothing, just like that. What kind of times are we living in? Are we not living in glorious times? No, I don't like the price of eggs. I don't like the price of meat. I don't like the price of gas. It was better. Who were we talking back in the 80s? It was better, right? Things were better back then. I wish we could go back. We are still blessed, and don't forget it. And take advantage of what God has given you. Be grateful and thankful, and we'll pray. I'm sorry we didn't get a lot of give and take. I apologize for that, but we'll pray. Heavenly Father, you have promised to be gracious to us every morning when we awake. We thank you for the life that you have given us, and that we have another day to live and enjoy your glory and your blessings. Above all, we thank you for being children of God, knowing that you loved us so much that when our time in this world is done, you have an eternity of blessings prepared for us through Jesus Christ, our Savior. Help us always to remain faithful to him and your word for your name's sake. Amen. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you, young people, for being here. It makes me feel better. I enjoy teaching a little more that way. And I like older people, not old people.